the truth of the matter, and you said it so well, Dr. Vibe, there are countless Black, African / Caribbean students, international students who are here in our cities who are struggling.
It's hard to know because we don't have like the data to say what is the state of Black health before and after. And that's something that we've been advocating for, right? We need better race-based data that's done in a way that serves us, because race-based data has been collected on different groups in ways that actually cause harm, but we need it to be done with us in a way that serves us.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world. So blessed to do that. And as always, I'm blessed, highly favored, and magic for miracles and a solution for someone's problem. We're broadcasting live on Black Canada Talking on September 8th. Yes, September is here. Where I am in Toronto, it's very cool. It's definitely fall weather, though it's not officially summer yet. But Black Canada Talking is a place where Black Canadians get a chance to give their takes, opinions, thoughts, POVs on local, provincial, national, international conversations. So before we go any further with that, always, if you want, I'd love you to subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. We're getting close to 1,600 subscribers. So if you are up to it, please, would love you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also share it out. Also like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And also, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe@vibeshow.com. He's always a regular wherever he is on any of my platforms. He is definitely a regular and absolutely loved. And as always, a staple of Black Canada Talking, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. What is up, Cesar?
Hi, Dr. Vibe. Hi, everyone. Hi to all all our brothers and sisters, but also allies will take a moment to listen, to watch, to support. Thank you. It's never appreciated enough. It's always appreciated, especially in these times that we go through. And yes, in Ottawa, as you can see by my sweater, it's September.
Yeah, you got the hoodie. I've got a hoodie on. I love the color, man. That's a slamming color, man. The yellow, that's fire.
Thank you.
New York. Very nice.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So what's been going on in your world, my man?
Working, family, and standing up for the community. We keep seeing, and it's not one of our topics, but as you know, I'm heavily involved in regards to addressing police brutality, racial profiling, etc., and for our brothers and sisters in the US, just as all around the world, they might be surprised to hear that, in Quebec, Montreal police has been found guilty of racially profiling Black people.
Oh.
Meanwhile, in Nova Scotia, the police has presented their apologies, aka where is the check, for street checks and racial profiling of Black people. So it is, sometimes people ask me, Cesar, why do you always talk about, racism? There we go. Some people have this notion, overwhelmingly whites and non-Blacks, but there are also some Black people who think to not talk about it will make it disappear. Somehow they don't have that same logic when it comes to such things as rape, pedophilia, murders. No, we have to talk about it because it's real. It's happening. It's very much there. Dr. Vibe, just so that I don't forget, as we begin our conversation, allow me, and I truly, absolutely apologize. I don't have the name of this lady in mind. It's a simple Google search. And I don't want to say my thoughts and prayers, but I'd like to remind our Black people, and some people won't like to hear this, but misogynistic view, just as violence against women is very real in the Black community. We have a lady, a young in Kenya, who was burned to death
Yes,
by
someone
her, I think,
shared me.
fiance.
Yes, someone shared about her with me.
Yes, yes, and yet she just, she was in the marathon in Paris at the Olympic Games. The studies speak to the fact that, in terms of gender-based violence, notably violence against women, Africa is the worst continent. It's not a matter of comparison, but we have to address it in the same way as, still speaking in Kenya, we have schools that have been burned on purpose, and young Black to get an education will have been killed. So,
Yes, you know what? And look at this. Yeah, look at, and we'll bring this up right now. And this was not a scheduled conversation piece, but we're going to bring it up on the screen right now. And Cesar, thank you so much. This was shared with me by a very close associate this week. And here we go. So we'll put it on the screen. Ugandan Olympic runner Rebecca Cheptegei, and if I get it wrong, it's my head, not my heart, dies after man set her on fire. Man said to be the runner's boyfriend accused in attack that burned more than 75% of her body.
uh, we, you know, it's not a, it's not just a man's issue; it's a whole society issue. But we must not be lying to ourselves, unless I'm mistaken. Uh, it's what, over 90%, and I think 98% of rapes, just as of gender-based violence, is. I am not a feminist. This is not a feminist speech. This is a life, a human speech. We have to stand with our sisters, our daughters, our wives, our mothers, because this is not acceptable. Someone could have prevented this. Whether it was, and we can just look at police in terms of saying police failure, someone in the community, many people in the community must have failed her. And yes, our women will go back to their abusers and all that, but we can't let that be an excuse, because she is someone's daughter, she is someone's sister, etc., etc.
Cesar, thank you for bringing up this tragic incident to our family today. Because I said, someone introduced it to me a few days ago, and I said, wow. But again, thank you for sharing. All right. Well, let's get to some other conversation topics. First things first, a different lens, but there was another mass shooting in America last week. But Cesar wants to give a little bit of a different lens on this story than what a lot of people are looking at. So, Cesar, certainly go ahead and tell us where you want to go with this.
Well, I hate to sound cynical, and I apologize to one who will hear this, notably living in the United States. But um, I've lost a lot of empathy school shootings in the United States, because mass shootings in the US happen so often, notably in schools, and it truly seems like the corporate greed, uh, aka corruption, prevent for not just really to address this American, notably shootings in school. Since Sandy Hook, when they killed those kids, that's when for me it was like, okay, I can't care if they don't care. But in the context of this Georgia school shooting, and this is really why we talk about Black pain, Black trauma, and Black victimization. Um, Again, I apologize. So many things to remember all at once. I'm forgetting the name of the young, the 14-year-old Black teenager who was killed. I forget his
I'll
name.
I'll see if I can find it. You just focus on what you want to share.
Well, there is, and this time I did not forget the name here. There is a news station, WSB-TV, that basically ran a false media news regarding the shooting, painting it as if it was the black teen who went into the school and shot four people. Yes, they withdrew it. At this moment, I don't know if they apologized, but this is part of the black pain in terms of which we have a black teenager who has been uh, murdered, and I think we should say assassinated, because he was killed because he was young and in a school. He was a student. There's, to take the words of what's his name, Trump's VP pick, JD. I can't help screwing up Vance. He claimed he claimed it's a fact of life. It's not a fact of. It's a part of American reality in the last 25 years, aka since Columbine, and there's a refusal to truly address it at a political level. I mean, notice how each and every politician in America has to basically state that they stand by the Second Amendment. It's ridiculous. They all lack the spine and the courage to say this Second Amendment from 1776, at a time when you needed to load the musket, put the powder, basically take an hour to charge your weapon, does not apply in an age of AR-15, which is a weapon of war. Actually, that's where the Vietnam War, the AR-15, that's where it comes from, used in
Of
society
war.
to kill, yeah, to kill civilians. Like, but the Second Amendment logic, I might as well start throwing well, not me, because of course I wouldn't do such a thing, but by the Second Amendment logic, it's just a matter of time until we get some psycho starting to throw grenades, because the people who buy
Yeah,
guns also do buy grenades.
but here's the thing too. In America, in many places, you can buy guns at Walmart.
Yes, and I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it at Walmart in the U.S.
Wow.
I've seen. This is not a. It's not a joke. I've seen it.
Wow.
I have a firearm license, but it's one thing to have a firearm license. It's another thing for me to tell you, let's go to Walmart and buy firearms. So, in the case of this young brother and the family, I can't imagine your child is victim, aka four or more people killed, and yet your child is still painted through anti-black racism lenses of being the shooter. I mean, it's so ridiculous. How often have we seen a black teen go up and shoot a school? Absolutely, we can talk about black youth violence, such as in regards of gangs, and we must talk about it. The black community is actually not shy to talk about it. We talk about it among our own. But here, what this TV station has done, WSB slash TV, I truly want hope for this black family. They have to sue them. Enough of this turning the cheek Jesus BS that too many black families adopt are the victims. This is a direct reference to uh, what's his name? I think it was in 2016, Darlene Roof, that white racist extremists who killed 9 black people in that church. And in court, families of the victims said they forgave him. He never asked for forgiveness. This is a problem of black people mindset. Sue that TV station. They did wrong by your murdered child. They did wrong by your family in pain. If that child was any other skin color, it wouldn't be hard to see the family suing, as they should. This is not some financial thing. This is not some black thing. This is a simple matter of respect and dignity. There are mistakes that you do not make, and if you make them, you have to be accountable to the consequences. We have people such as, I can't help what I'm thinking about him. People such as Hulk Hogan will make millions of BS lawsuits, and we have black families that are actually victimized, and they go give apologies. It has to stop.
Actually, I think I have a picture of the young gentleman you're talking about who was killed, assassinated, but for and it were and his name was okay, yeah, his name is Mason Sherma Mohorn. I did. That was one of him. That's him.
Yes, yes.
Here's the picture of him right here.
My condolences, my truest condolences, Pan Africanist feelings, very human feelings to the family of this young man. Starting school, I think I can't remember his second day of school or something like that, and being shot. No, 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 no.
Yeah, yeah, and he was, and it's WSB TV, as you were mentioning, thought that he was the person with a gun first.
And we all know why. This is the same stereotypical painting that led to the killing of Trayvon Martin, of Mike Brown, of Tamir Rice. But here, just as the others, the black boy is the victim. This is traumatic. This is further victimizing the victim. This is kind of like, how do you call that? In terms of gender language, it's slut shaming the rape victim because she had a short skirt or even a long skirt, or she was wearing a winter coat. No, he can't. It really infuriated me because you would think 2024, 4 years after George Floyd and all that EDI talk that corporations talked about endorsing and, conscious bias trainings and all that. So, directly relating to my professional sector here, this is not an accident. This is not an accident. This is not, this, when even the average racist white MAGA supporter doesn't go to make such a mistake, and we have a news media that makes it, someone has to be held accountable. Black people learn to sue corporations, your workplace, family members, and friends. It's not about suing for the money. Learn to sue for your respect and dignity.
Well, as we continue on, Dr. Tachi says, "Happy Sunday. Hope that you are here." And uh, yeah, this. Well, I wonder if Benjamin Crump, who you always see doing lawyering
Yes.
for this, will be part of this. I want to go a little bit further into this than Cesar. Why? Because I can tell you're very upset about this.
As we
Why?
all should.
Yes. Oh, okay. So Dr. Tachi says yes. She goes, yes, suing for the principle, not for the money.
Exactly.
All right, good stuff. Do you have you seen, or what are your thoughts about media coverage when it comes to people who look like us in such, just in general?
Well, we do have in EDI work, there is a video regarding the change of narratives between white protesters versus black protesters and how media, just as police, but even politicians, including Obama, tend to paint them. Uh, our blackness leads to harsher judgments and also, of course, harsher consequences. And if we are to be honest, even as a community, we as Black people tend to be harsher upon our own. Part of it is due to survival. So we have a higher standard to which we hold our own to behave, to survive. But at the same time, part of it is internalized anti Black racism, where we have adopted some of the views of those who have mistreated us over centuries and racist towards us, and we push down upon our very own when they are the ones who should be victimized. So too often we like to use the excuse, and of course, I'm speaking generally. I'm not speaking regarding each and every black person. Too often, as black people, and you know me, as a Pan Africanist, I'm truly speaking worldwide. This is not just Canada and the US. Too often, we talk about tough love when truly what is needed is empathy and compassion. When truly what is needed is a hug. When truly what is needed is to have a brother, a sister to listen, to say, I got you, to say in my Douala language of the Sawa people, to say, Asia, Asia, it will be fine. It will be okay. I'm here for you. Let me help you get back up. Less judgment, more support.
Mm.
And this is too often something that's missing because this is a consequence that comes with a society of systemic racism, in our case as black people, of white supremacy. When I say white, my people don't understand. I don't just mean European. White Arabs, white Jews, white Aryans, aka white Indians, Persians, but also Asian. Also, the systemic racism, the discrimination against black people on the four corners of the world, in South America, in Canada and the US, even in indigenous, uh, I don't like the term, reserves, indigenous communities.
Mm-hmm.
So, too many of us, in the quest of survival, but also of thriving, I give you a perfect example. What happens in the black community, generally speaking, in the black neighborhood when someone finds success, the first goal is to move out of that neighborhood. It's not to establish themselves and improve on the success, to help others uplift. It's to go to the white neighborhood and there to flash the success. It's not an accident when we see so many of our athletes, musicians, so-called black elites, and unfortunately in the black community, elites mean entertainers,
Mm.
because most of our black youth, but even black adults, when they're thinking black elites, they're not thinking Robert F. Smith, the richest black man in America. They're not thinking Aliko Dangote, the richest black person in the world. When they're thinking black elites, they're thinking Beyonce and LeBron. Let's be honest. And too often we see it is in the black community that we see too many of our so-called elites slash entertainers, but even in the business world, go have a white partner and we celebrate it or we hate on it. Robert F. Smith should not be hated for having a white wife. But at the same time, and this is very recent, a princess of Norway married a black man. And many people are celebrating him as a black king. He's not a black king. He did nothing. But you see, those type of lenses are byproducts of being black in a world of white supremacy. Meanwhile, when we look at white athletes and musicians, so few of them have a black wife. Robert De Niro, who had a black wife and black children, is as rare as a Jamie Foxx with white girlfriends is common. That's a problem because it all fits into those negative, stereotypical portrayals of black people. I am not and I will never be against interracial relationship or dating, but I purposely give that example because that is one that, in terms of the black community, none needs to be academic to understand the conversation on racism, systemic racism through history, sociology, anthropology, economics and politics, and culture. None needs to be academic. It's simple logic and conversation. And as such, although I will never oppose it, How can I oppose it? My wife is mixed. My daughter looks like her mom is white. You see what I mean? My sister in Paris is mixed. The pharaohs in ancient Egypt didn't only had black wives in the harem to call it exactly what it is. The first people to mix were the Homo sapiens coming out of Africa. They mixed, notably with the Neanderthals. So it's never about opposing, but we have to have this honest conversation because, as Frantz Fanon, and I think most of our people know Frantz Fanon, wrote himself, he had a white wife. For too many blacks who have an enslaved slash colonized mindset, whiteness is the seal of success. To dress as whites, to live in the white neighborhoods, to wear the clothes of white people as white people, to try to speak as white people, code switching, to have a white wife or husband, because more and more sisters are having white husbands. But don't get me wrong, I'm not talking white husband as Supreme Court Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has a white husband that she met much younger in school as he was fighting against racism. Interracial relationship out of love. Meanwhile, we have Supreme Court Judge Clarence Thomas, who has a white wife, and we know Jeannie Thomas, she is with the Trumpers. She is with the very racist, misogynist, etc. talk, aka relationship by interest. But it all links to why we talk about black pain, black trauma, and black victimization, where dignity and respect is not afforded to that black child. Meanwhile, none of us as black people is surprised that this white teenager who committed the murder, was arrested, was treated according to his Miranda rights. Remember, there was a case when one was even driven to a Burger King. But if this was a black shooter, we wouldn't be surprised that police would have shot him dead. So this is, it really, this is part of that critical, analytical thinking where you don't have to be black to see and understand what I'm saying. Of course not. But because you're black, it hits you a little bit differently. That 14-year-old could have been, 12 years later, after Trayvon Martin, Obama had said it. Trayvon could have been his son. I am now at an age where I can clearly say this young brother who was killed could have been my son, could have been your son, could have been the son of so many of us black men and black women.
100%. 100%. 100%. Really good stuff, Cesar. And it's actually, you must have been reading my alleged mind, because I was thinking this afternoon, and I'm going on social media less and less these days. And I went through my Instagram timeline. I noticed how many likes posts that feature melanated entertainers and like how much serious knowledge gets likes wise. And I just say, wow, I'm disappointed. That's all. I'm just disappointed.
I would say, if you don't mind me saying it this way, we have to be mindful of what we follow and to what end. And I always remind people, so if I give myself as an example, there is nothing wrong with following fitness people slash bodybuilders. There is nothing wrong with following, let's say, beautiful people, fashion, whatever, or cars, etc., etc. But there's a problem to only, or even sports, for example, there's a problem with only engaging in such. There's a problem when, if I give the example of a dating scenario. The issue is not that men as women come to the conversation and he talks about his muscles and she talks about her beauty. That's not the problem. There's a problem, that's what all they talk about. Of course, if they're so superficial that they're satisfied with such, well, we should be happy for them. They found each other. But in terms of society and notably in terms of a community, and we have to remember, in terms of a marginalized community, and when I say marginalized, a community that greatly marginalizes itself as well, it becomes a fundamental problem if, for too many, the content of our social media is so superficial. Because the reality hits hard. You're talking about social media. I found out this week on social media that one of there's a big conversation, and we should have a topic coming soon about the state of hip hop, whether hip hop has benefited or not the
Oh,
black
yeah, yeah,
community.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We okay, I'm gonna write that down. Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but I couldn't help to notice how the famous hip hop producer Birdman is having financial issues with the foreclosure of his home.
Yeah. Well, let's hold on. Yeah, I saw about that. Well, we'll talk. We'll bring. You know what? And I think this is another. Okay, I'm gonna hold off. I'll mention later, but another group conversation.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna hold off on that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick little break, and we've got a number of things that Cesar wants to share about today. But we're gonna take a quick little break, and we're gonna come back with more stuff on Black Canada Talking Today. So we'll be back right quick. Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Join Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key as they cut through the chaos and make some sense of the nonsense in American news and politics.
Where is your getting out there and doing everything that needs to be done to get this man in office? Because I don't see it.
Sharp insights, bold opinions, and a touch of humor. It's the show that keeps you informed and entertained.
Only when it fits their benefit.
Exactly.
Don't miss Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Tune in and stay ahead of the headlines. All right, we are continuing with Black Canada Talk Today, but also want to make you aware, if you want to get in touch with Cesar, email address, president@Roots and Culture Canada, and Facebook is at Cesar Remy Emery. I have put the contact information on all the platforms that you're watching right now if you want to reach out to Cesar. And let's continue. And this one has gone under the radar, and you wonder why Black America especially is not talking about this. The China-Africa Summit. Why not even America's talking about this? Because it implicates them. So go ahead, Cesar.
Dr. Vibe is a very important summit. So first of all, let me say the negative, to be quite honest. It is not painted as such, and absolutely the Chinese authorities absolutely reject such painting. Right there on the photo, you can see the flag of my colonial birth country of Cameroon. The green, red, yellow with the yellow star. I have issues with such conferences. I understand it, but I'd like for our Black people to understand. China Africa Summit. Can you imagine a Nigeria Asia Summit? Can you imagine Congo Europe? Can you imagine South Africa? And in brackets, they should change the name of that country. It's not Black people who name that country South Africa, for those who don't know. But it is basically a colonial set. And to be fair to China, you also have USA Africa Summit, just as of European countries, just as you have Japan Africa. It's the Western or the Asian country meeting basically leaders of the 54. In this case, it was 53 because Eswatini recognized Taiwan, so they didn't answer the invites of China. But you always have these 50 plus African countries basically coming to meet as a continent, one country, in the logic of begging. It's a fundamental problem. This further drives inferiority complexes and, as such, superiority complexes. That's the first thing I want our people to understand. If you cannot imagine, when we talk about such a thing as the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, you should have countries such as South Africa, such as Nigeria, have one-on-one conversations with China, with the USA, with Russia, with Saudi Arabia, with Qatar, with Japan. And yet, no, we cannot imagine Asian leaders lining up to shake hands with this one leader of Africa. That right there, ideologically and symbolically, is a fundamental problem that further drives the notions of inferiority complexes of African leaders, in brackets, black leaders, because what's the Caribbean in comparison to Africa as a continental bloc? Now, it's very strategic as conferences, as summits, because in the changing world of multipolar geopolitics that we live in, multipolar, but it would seem more and more two blocks, the so-called Western blocs and the so-called non-democratic Western blocs. But it's not exactly right to paint it as such. India is a democracy that has no problem doing business with Russia. You see? So it's a matter of interest. It's not about the notion of blocks. We know very well America, aka democratic nations, has no problem supporting dictatorships that serve their interests. China claiming to be the leader of the global South. This is not China of the 1960s under Mao. This is, 21st century China, aka the second economy in the world. Now, to truly delve into the topic, and when I was talking about begging hands, China literally has put it on the table over $50 billion to African nations in regards to the development. And studies on the ground in Africa speak to a far more positive reception of Chinese aid, to call it what it is, compared to Western aid. So the Beijing Protocol basically comes in the nature of interest. Meanwhile, Washington consensus, Paris, Berlin, London come with conditions in regards notably to democracy and human rights. So Chinese are there to do business, but let us not fool ourselves. This is not aid from and it shouldn't be aid solely for the purpose of helping. It is basically a business transaction in which, time and again, it is China that gets the upper hand. Absolutely, we can see such things as Kenya or Senegal getting modern trains. I mean, look, my black people, look it up. For those of you who are in Canada and the United States, Senegal and Kenya are actually having more modern trains than in Canada and the US. I have never taken the train in Canada and the US. There's a reason why. I'm not here to badmouth train workers who do very important work. And I mean, in Canada, there was a strike just last week or 2 weeks ago. But if you compare the trains between Europe, China, Japan, and you compare them to Canada and the US, it's terrible. And this was done on purpose, by the way. It was done on purpose so that the automobile, and the highways would keep getting the benefit, just as how they killed the, how do you call that? The hydrogen car, the flying car, etc. So this is, again, always a matter of interest. So yes, Africa is benefiting in terms of its modernization, but it comes at a cost. People talk about a debt trap in which many African nations, notably, you take the case of, I think it's Djibouti, having to sell the port to China because they can't reimburse the debt. So you literally are selling infrastructures and parts of your land. I was having a conversation earlier this week with African migrants in Europe, where basically talking about the inheritance back home. Many Africans, if they don't pay attention and they don't value the homeland, they may have to come one day to the realization that if white countries kick them out, they're going to come back to an Africa that in many parts, not all parts, but in many parts is owned by Chinese nationals. And on that topic, and I will stop here, something that many people don't talk about, there is anti-black racism in Africa by Chinese. On one side, we can see the picture that's painted to us in terms of a growth, I should even say a booming explosion of Asian and black weddings. There's an increase of such, but at the same time, there's also an increase of rare lands and basically an increase of land being bought by foreign nationals, notably Chinese, but not just Chinese. Some Arab nations are buying lands in Africa. This is the failures and corruption of our government when, reversely, you can't go buy land in China. You can't go buy land.
This is so true. That you and I couldn't go do that in China.
Can't do that in China.
But
Like there are black merchants, absolutely. I will tell you actually where.
but they, like, for us to do business in China, you are limited and restricted.
You are strongly limited and restricted. The place in Asia that has the highest concentration of black slash Africans is Guangzhou in China. And I am followed, and I salute, if anyone is listening to this from China, I salute. I have some followers in China from. I will. They've asked me don't name our universities just because.
No.
But I have some black and Chinese followers in China who will notably give me information regarding these things that we're talking about. So I am not here to condemn the summit. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But remember, Dr. Vibe, even last year, no, not last year, this April, when I was at the United Nations in Geneva, I congratulated the Chinese delegation for supporting the Forum for People of African Descent.
Yeah, well, okay.
But
now,
I reminded them it is for them to address anti-black racism in China.
I go to I'm sure there's a. I wonder if that's really meant to be, or is it because financial? I want to bring up too this article about the summit that's from Al Jazeera, and just want to read a bit of it and get sort of any response you want to. This section of the article I'm going to put up on the screen. Are China-Africa relations controversial? Chinese investments have been met with resistance at the local level in many countries, especially regarding environmental issues. Something you talked about a few weeks ago about environment and greenhouse. Last week, for instance, activists in Uganda protested and marched to the Chinese embassy in Kampala over the oil pipeline project that will transfer crude from the country to neighboring Tanzania. The pipeline will be operated by a Chinese state firm in collaboration with French energy and petroleum company Total, as well as the Tanzanian and Ugandan governments. It's set to be the longest heated oil pipeline in the world. However, communities say it will displace thousands of people and destroy the environment. China has separately faced criticism for failing to stop unsustainable practices such as illegal logging in several African countries that contribute to the market in China. The U.S.-based Environmental Investigation Agency, in a May 2024 report, found that illegal timber transports from Mozambique to China has surged since 2017. The funds were going to armed groups contributing to insurgency in the country, the study said. In addition, China's critics accused Beijing of luring African countries into significant loan agreements that they struggled to pay back, allowing Beijing to seize lucrative assets, a practice some tag as, quote, debt diplomacy, unquote. Some countries like Zambia have defaulted on loans. By the end of 2022, Zambia amassed more than $18 billion in external debt, with at least 12% of that owed to China, the country's biggest bilateral creditor. In March, Lusaka reached a restructuring agreement with China and other creditors that saw about $840 million of the claims written off. China has reportedly rejected the notion that it's trying to entrap nations in Africa and elsewhere using debt. The, quote, debt trap theory, unquote, has been challenged by some experts who say Chinese investments are too plentiful and too fragmented for the country to have a deliberate debt strategy. Any thoughts?
Listen, as I said, at the United Nations, the Chinese delegations, the Chinese representatives, they cannot and they will not agree to this. But facts are facts, and in such. So I will tell you this, Dr. Vibe, no little secret. As you know, I am a Sawa from Cameroon, and we use fashion, as it was the case traditionally in Africa. We use fashion as statements. It's not accidentally that I'm wearing this yellow hoodie with brown marking. It is very much for this topic. I want our Black people, notably African leaders, to pay caution to this, because there is a term, yellow neocolonialism. Of course not. China is coming with weapons, trying to enslave, colonize Africans, or basically subject Africans to Confucianism and Taoism by force, as white Europeans and white Arabs have done with Islam and Christianity. It is not that. But in an age of 21st century of development, of the Silk Belt Road Initiative, it is not so much by loans and debts as it's necessarily painted. Because, yes, to what Al Jazeera said, but there is a fundamental aspect that is not addressed. And to me, as a Black person, as a Pan-Africanist, as an African born, is the most important. The corruption and failure of African governments. It is the number one factor. It is not China. You can replace China. If you remove China, it will be another country.
United States.
United States. France.
France.
Russia. You name it. Africa has Russian paramilitary there to oppose Western governments, as if we can't have people taking weapons for themselves to defend their own nations. We have basically Japan that's there, Japan Africa summits. How many of our Black people know that Japanese workers left mixed Black children in the 70s in the Congo because it would have been shameful for them to return? I apologize for this language. I don't agree with it, but I'm saying what most people say, with the bastard Black children. Notice I didn't say the N-word, but that's exactly the thought behind it. The Black children to return with them to Japan. So it's not so much China the problem. And I think this is very important for anyone Chinese to hear this, to understand this. It's not so much China or any non-African, non-Black country the problem. It's the failure and corruption of African governments. I give you a perfect, very simple example. We talk about animal preservation, the elephants, the rhinoceros, the lions. It's not Africans who are killing them. It's not Africans who are exterminating them. It's not the village in the jungle or savannah that's going down hunting the rhinoceros and cutting off its horn. It's rich foreigners. How do you think they get in the country? How do you think they get the licenses, the permits to do the hunting, the killing, and to bring out of Africa the elephant tusks, the rhinoceros horns, the lion's mane? The failure and corruption of African governance is the number one reason. China is basically there for its own interest, and China is absolutely correct to do so. Take no, practically no future in China, including difficulty to find a wife. Ship them to Africa as workers, and maybe they find themselves even a black wife. I mean, China is setting up how do you call them? Confucius Institutes. African children learning Mandarin with hopes of going to China, such as in Ethiopia and all over countries. More and more African women marrying Chinese men, basically creating a new caste, because that's what it is, a new caste in the society. Just as, and many Africans know this, mixed/biracial Africans are not treated the same as dark-skinned Africans. In the same way as dark-skinned Africans are not treated the same as the Baka and the Twa in Central Africa. The Baka and the Twa are what white people have called pygmies. So this is kind of the creation of a new caste, but it is because of the failure of our governments. That kind of failure is what permits and eases what leads eventually to a debt trap, because those same countries have millionaires. I mean, I give the example of Nigeria, and I don't want anyone from Nigeria to be offended. But how do we reconcile the fact that we have more and more millionaire Nigerians, notably artists, but also businessmen, and yet there's a fuel crisis in Nigeria? There's a fuel crisis, and yet the national oil/petroleum company, the state company, has made huge profits. These type of contradictions that could be called African contradictions, that are really black contradictions. Kind of as I was saying earlier, we are the community that flashes the money, that wear the bling bling necklace and all that. That shows the athlete wants to make sure that you see, pimp my ride, pimp my house. Look at the 10, 20 rooms that I have and the 50 bathrooms that I have and blah, blah, blah. And when they die, we need to do a GoFundMe. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I agree. All right. You know what? Do you want to go for a break? You want to continue flowing?
Let's do a short break. Sure.
I'll do a short break. We'll come back with two more stories, and the first one will come back after the break. Is there's a change in the political climate in Canada as of this week, and it could lead to, sooner rather than later, another election coming. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Join Aisha K. Staggers and Laura Lala Key as they cut through the chaos and make some sense of the nonsense in American news and politics.
That's not a big enough sample to even say that this is representative of anything.
Sharp insights, bold opinions, and a touch of humor. It's the show that keeps you informed and entertained.
Those polls have you thinking, I don't need to go there.
Don't miss Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. Tune in and stay ahead of the headlines. All right, we are back on Primetime on Black Canada Talking. I do too many shows with Cesar Ndema-Moussa. We are here. Got two more conversation pieces, and both involve, these ones definitely involve politics. One involving politics in Canada, and the other one, politics in the United States. But the one in the United States definitely has global impact. But what happened this week in Canada? The New Democratic Party ended its governance agreement with the Liberal Party, which means that an election was supposed to be called by the end of next year. Anyways, it could be more imminent. So, Cesar, your thoughts on the NDP calling it a day with their agreement?
Listen, how can I put it? Uh, Mr. Jagmeet Singh claiming that he's breaking the agreement because Justin Trudeau will never stand up to corporate interests. I mean, I find it interesting in terms of, I mean, has Justin Trudeau done politics differently than when he started? He did. I mean, I might be wrong, but he hasn't been doing anything differently. I, you know, for those who don't know, but in my subconscious mind, it might be that Jagmeet Singh, with all the talent, and I don't just mean oratory, very intelligent man, with all the talents that he has, I think he was a bit bothered by what Pierre Poilievre, the the leader of the Conservative Party, said regarding him being in the agreement until 2025 in order to access a generous pension. I think that might be really the reason why, because I did not see anything. And I mean, please, if anyone has that information, educate me. I'm asking sincerely. But I didn't read or didn't see anything of such surprising political nature or decision that Justin Trudeau and the Liberals have done, that suddenly, oh my God, the NDP and Jagmeet Singh, we can no longer be allied with this Trudeau guy and the Liberals because they are so submissive to corporate greed. In the name of what? And I mean, it was reported that Justin Trudeau himself found out on the news. He was surprised as well. You see what I mean? So, no, I think uh, Jagmeet may have fallen into the trap that Pierre Poilievre will say anything and everything just to get under the skin of Justin Trudeau, because Jagmeet Singh will not be the Prime Minister of Canada. Canada is not ready for that. The way I totally understand that Great Britain had an Indian Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak,
Yeah.
but I'm not seeing
Yeah.
Canada.
Well, and where's Rishi now?
There you go. There you
Right.
go.
I find this interesting that Mr. Singh did this when his party's ratings in the polls is dropping.
And this is part of the reason why I'm saying that. Kind of like, it's like, you know, you were for so long subservient to the Liberal Party, because that's what it is. Absolutely, the NDP this was the closest they came to leadership in the federal sense. This is not going back to the 90s in Ontario with Bob Rae, where they actually had power. And for many, they may have lost it forever. But there's no such a thing as forever in politics. Things change. But first of all, in terms of the image and the symbolism, I have a hard time seeing a Jagmeet Singh, aka a Sikh person, Sikh, by the way, becoming Prime Minister of Canada right now, just as Nikki Haley, who is actually a white Indian, Aryan, Nikki Haley becoming the Republican Party nominee in the United States. Canada is not there yet. Great Britain wasn't there. It was nomination within the party. So that's a different type of logic. It's not people voting for the person who's going to be there. Now, in terms of the political aspect of things, yeah, Jagmeet also defends himself, saying he would never take advice from Pierre Poilievre. He basically see Pierre Poilievre as the big bad wolf who it just aims to divide, and etc. etc. And I could agree with him, but there's just one little problem. You are not bound to be in power. The NDP at a federal level, yes, NDP can be in power in some cities and even provinces. I'm talking federally talking. You are very unlikely to become the prime minister. Should such a political divorce have been done in a smoother way and also in a way that permits, even in the nature of interest, to help to make it that, how do you call that? You don't lose face. When I say you don't lose face, is that the way Canadian politics come down to is that most people, I've never voted NDP. So first of all, let me state this. But most people who are NDP, unless I'm wrong, if it comes down to voting liberals or voting conservatives, they're going to vote liberals. This is traditionally what happens in Canada. NDP voters vote liberals. This is also why it has been brought more than once that the NDP should just make it simple and just integrate the Liberal Party. Kind of in the US becoming Maxime, what's his name? Maxime Bernier, fully integrating the conservative, which he actually left. So the far right of Canada and the far left of Canada to create a two-party system. I'm okay with us not having that, but ultimately, if we are to be honest, in Canada, we know the elections come down to liberals versus conservative at the federal level. The Bloc Québécois does not care about the federal elections other than whatever is in their interest for a separatist Quebec. So that will never fly. So no, I just find it interesting because the other thing also that's to mention, no, I do not think this divorce will lead to elections this year. I might be wrong, but I think Poilievre, just as Trudeau and Singh, are sensitive enough to the fact that most Canadians are really caring about the elections down south. That's that's a priority, and there's such a thing about elections at the end of November or in December. Justin Trudeau wouldn't be that. Even if there's a lack of motion of distrust of the government, I don't think it would happen. Yes, the Conservatives are at a high, and of course, Pierre Poilievre can see himself tomorrow as the prime minister. It is entirely his right, but he's also a populist. I never forget his support to the Freedom Truckers, DUMB, by the way, for those who did not understand the connection here. And I say this purposely because we know 100% that if they were black, if they were Muslims, if they were LGBTQ, they would have lasted 3 weeks in downtown Ottawa in front of the parliament. But just to go back to Pierre Poilievre, his populism to support them, the reality check is that if he was the one in power, he would have never allowed that to go on for 3 weeks. So I unfortunately think Jagmeet Singh, for all his talents, very intelligent man, great speaker, he has that that human touch someone like Trump and even Poilievre lack. Trump is kind of like a joker, you know what I mean? Meanwhile, Poilievre comes off a little bit robotic, and he admitted it himself. His wife helping to rebranding, take off the glasses, smile more, dress less. So he admitted it. I'm not saying anything mean or kind of like, no, but I think I have a hard time understanding really the reason why, as if Justin Trudeau and the Liberals did any radical fundamental change that would drive to ending that governance agreement. And I really think something he had to, maybe in a narcissistic way, maybe it's the ego, to prove Pierre Poilievre wrong, that he's not just hanging by this governance agreement. Because if you are honest, most people in the NDP support the case of Gaza and Palestine. The Liberal government very openly and strongly support Israel. There's a reported over 40,000 dead Palestinians since Israel has begun its operations following the tragic October 7th killing of close to 1,200 Jewish/Israeli citizens by Hamas. But we cannot stay silent to the fact of 1,200, 40,000. Absolutely tragic. And by the way, Dr. Vibe, and it was not our topic, I watched the debate on Piers Morgan Uncensored between Kundes, aka Candace Owens, versus Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. I have to be honest, for the first time, I agreed with Sister Sellout, Kundes Owens, versus this rabbi. Back to Jagmeet Singh. How come Israel and Palestine didn't drive in to end the governance agreement? If you really want to talk about such fundamental issue to bring the end to that governance agreement.
Good stuff. Well, we don't have the little visitor yet, so we'll fit in one more con.
She actually came in.
Oh gosh! Okay. All right, do we have time for
earlier?
Do we have time for one more? Because usually,
no, they're out.
Okay, all right. Because usually we hear the head popping in, and all. we're going. Okay, so and we're in Canada. We're talking about things. Cesar made a point of talking about things going on down south. Well, here we go. Here's something that's happening down south. For those who are watching before September 10th, 2024 at 9 p.m. Eastern, we are going to be having a live watch party around the Harris 45 debate. And yes, there'll be a lot of people covering it media-wise, but we have a unique slant on this. So I'm going to show you the scheduled participants. Now on my screen from left to right, there's Aisha K. Staggers, Laura Lala Key, Jill Jones, and the great Dr. Tachi. Let me get that away from Dr. You need to see Dr. Tachi. There we go. Dr. Tachi. 4 African-American queens. On the bottom row, Wayne Harris, Ryan Knight, and our esteemed guest today on Black Canada Talking, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. African-Canadian kings. So I don't think there'll be too many media outlets that are going to have a by-country feedback in real time on this debate. So this is going to be a very unique session that we're holding. Again, I'm going to put it up on the screen. Live September 10th, 2024 at 9 p.m. Eastern. The Harris 45 debate watch party with live takes from our participants. I'll put them up on the screen again. Aisha K. Staggers, Laura Lala Key, Jill Jones, Dr. Tachi on the top, on the bottom, Wayne Harris, Ryan O'Neill Knight, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. So being we are going into that, let's talk. So your thoughts, Cesar, on the upcoming debate?
Well, Dr. Vibe, if you don't mind me, the debate starts at 9 p.m. Maybe for our listeners, what time are we starting us?
That's really, you brought, that's a I think we should go live at 8:45. But now okay. I got to tell everybody that because we're going to go, that's a good point. I'm going to ask everybody, I'm going to change the time to 8:45, but so everyone sort of talk and have a little pre-conversation before the live debate. Yeah, I think I like that idea. Thank you. I will up that. I'll update that for those who can come in a little bit earlier on the panel. Like I know Wayne Harris can't come in until 9:30, but the others, it's a really good idea. So I'm gonna see because just to bring everybody on and start looking, I think having people come on and just chat, etc., get their thoughts beforehand is a great idea. But you get that opportunity now.
First of all, I would say, will Trump show up? I think he will show up.
Okay. Now here's something funny already. Lala says she still isn't convinced that he's going to show up.
I think he will show up because for him, it's not about politics, it's about ego. It's about self interest. It's about, first of all, justifying why the mic will be closed when, of course, he will pretend he wanted it open, fully knowing that it was an open trap that he was walking into. But he can't possibly admit to potentially failing to, one, a woman, and two, a black woman, and three, a prosecutor who happens to be a black woman. This is the reality in which Donald Trump is faced because this might be the last opportunity that he has to take the lead over Kamala Harris in order to avoid losing the elections November 5th. Because my people, black people, allies, and even those who are lost claiming MAGA and being Trump supporters, the reality of these elections is not just the choice of an America, but truthfully, as America is still the number one power in the world, these elections will have a global impact. But on a personal level, for someone named Donald J. Trump, losing the elections literally means jail. It's that simple. Let's not get it twisted. So, a little dedicated message to too many brothers and a few sisters, because there are, but too many brothers who are opposing Kamala Harris under claims of policies and, misinformation because she was a prosecutor and all that. My brothers, the misogynoir, aka misogyny in the black community towards black women, you need to address that. Too many of you, too many of us, as we are both men, have misogynistic views, but also, I would say, and I'm going to come off a little bit harsh here, for many black men, it's hard to see a successful black woman succeed, reach pinnacles they can't even dream for themselves. And yet, it shouldn't be the case. I'm not supporting Kamala Harris just because she is black or a black woman. That's ridiculous. The symbolism is Kamala Harris is a sister. It's my wife. It's my daughter. It's literally my sister who is a corporate executive in the US. It's literally so many black women who have worked hard and achieved coming from humble and even poor backgrounds. It could have been Michelle Obama. But more than that, it's also a matter of policies and a matter of tenure, professional tenure, decency. I'm going to say a lot of things that I'm just going to repeat on Tuesday, but as I've told so many people, how could that possibly support a man like Donald Trump? How could I? A racist who was calling for the imprisonment, and a white person had corrected me, saying he even went so far as to call for the death sentence of the Central Park, aka Exonerated Five, back then. A man who has decades of racist history, notably in housing. A man who, we're talking about sexual assault, aka rape. A man who is xenophobic, and his populism goes so far, notably beyond being a draft dodger, to insult people who are veterans, to send his sycophant fans against the police while claiming to support the police. There are so many things about Donald J. Trump. And of course, let's be honest, here I am as a regional director of EDI, a man who opposes EDI because he supports white supremacist views. And yeah, don't be fooled because he received a bunch of black pastors, aka charlatans, in the White House to give him support because they look at him as the black messiah, even more as he escaped an assassination attempt. Donald Trump represents everything I oppose. He represents the pinnacle of white privilege in the same way as the British royal family. Donald J. Trump is a man who, I can't remember if he was 18 or 21 years old, inherited how many millions from his father, and yet you have all these poor, uneducated white people looking at him as the hope and savior when he is documented to look down upon them. I mean, I liked Sister Omarosa who revealed, I can't remember if he was on CNN or MSNBC, when he's there talking about Kamala Harris being an EDI hire and whether she's really black or now she's black, Sister Omarosa revealed that Donald Trump at the time used to claim he was Swedish because, Swedish and Irish, because, that German background didn't fly too well, with World War II and the Nazis still being in people's minds. So this man, Donald J. Trump, represents, and even when you look at the fact that the judge just a few days ago chose to delay his sentencing for the Stormy Daniels, he chose to delay his sentencing to after the elections. That's privilege. That's beyond white privilege. This is Donald Trump. This is, after reflection, and we probably talk about it on Tuesday. After reflection, I agree with the judge. He did the right thing. But it further tells you this is something that would not happen to anyone else. This man, I mean, Dr. Vibe, I'm going to shock you right now. I want Donald Trump level of white privilege. Who's going to give it to me?
Nobody.
Who's gonna give it to you, Dr. Vibe?
Nobody.
Anyone, including white people.
Is he above the law?
This is why he said he could shoot someone on Pennsylvania Avenue, aka in front of the White House, and he likely wouldn't even be arrested or jailed. I mean, there comes a point when, look, someone needs to write that book because I will not write that book. I will not waste my time writing on this man. But someone needs to write a book about Donald Trump being the cancer of America, the cancer that is killing America, but the cancer that really exposed America for what it is. Because if we are to be honest, and this is one thing to which I greatly thank Donald Trump for, he has further exposed a lot of things that has been said about America in regards to systemic racism, corruption, and greed. When you have someone such as Liz Cheney, and especially former Vice President Dick Cheney, coming out to say that they won't vote for the Republican candidate, but they will vote for Kamala Harris, a black woman, the Democrat nominee, that tells you the state of America. And there are many Republicans, many whites, notably rich whites, who don't really want Donald Trump to win. When you have people like Mitch McConnell unable to stand up when this man insulted his wife, when you have people like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz unable to stand up when this man insulted the family, insulted them. I mean, I could give a pass to Mitt Romney, but even Mitt Romney described how foul of a person Donald Trump is. Donald Trump basically is a cancer to the Republican Party, but also a cancer to America. I mean, I can just imagine, what if Ronald Reagan was still alive? I would have loved to hear what he would think about Donald Trump. That's his party. That's the party of Ronald Reagan. Like, if we are truly honest, the last, and I mean, Thank you for the Cold War ending, but truly, I'm not a fan of Ronald Reagan, aka the governor of California, who fought against the Black Panthers, making them illegal, but keeping the KKK quite legal, right? But it would have been great to hear, what does Ronald Reagan think about Donald Trump? Because his children, whatever, no, Ronald Reagan. George Bush, son, saying that he's neither endorsing Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump is a rebuke against Trump. The last Republican president not officially endorsing the Republican candidate. Read between the lines, my people. George Bush is voting for Kamala Harris. They understand that Trump will bring America down. And I mean, don't get me wrong, as a Pan-Africanist, I oppose every empire. So this is not Cesar being hypocritical and wanting another 500 years of American dominance in the world. No, that's not it. But this election has global consequences, and notably upon us Black people. Those Black people who are basically notably Black MAGAs who are supporting Donald Trump. I mean, you want to see, you're going to see down the street all these white people in golf attire with tiki torches. You will not replace us. But you think they're going to treat you differently from the immigrants? Differently from the Jews? Differently from the LGBTQ? That black skin of yours, what you gonna do? You're gonna paint it over and go in the MAGA protest? A bunch of Uncle Ruckus in the community.
Let me ask, going into the debate, who has more to lose? 45 or Kamala Harris?
It's 45. Kamala Harris has everything to gain. Donald Trump has everything to lose. Donald Trump cannot afford to lose. And this is why I am not the only person who can already see the writing on the wall. As he himself has said, in not so many words, if he doesn't win, he will claim the elections were rigged, and it is likely that we're going to assist to a January 6, 2025. Capitol Police, Washington Police, are you ready? The State Guard, are you ready? Will you do your job? Because if it was a bunch of Black men who had stormed the Capitol on January 6, 2021, even Biden admitted it, it would have been a bloodbath. So my question is this: are you ready to do your job? This is the same thing as we had here in Ottawa in 2022 with the Freedom Truckers. If it was a bunch of Black truckers that 3 weeks chilling and playing hockey and chilling in a bathtub in front of Parliament, it would have happened. And we all know this. So I dare to ask the question, are people ready for what? I've said it many times and I repeat it. One way or the other, there will be violence after November 5. There will be violence to the election, and it might not be as close as people may think. I mean, Biden beat Trump by, I think it was 7 or 8 million votes in 2020. If you do a simple calculation, those who are more likely to vote for Trump are older white generation. Those who are more likely to vote for Harris are younger multicultural generation. The older white generation dies faster. The younger multicultural generation, more of them have come to voting age. And you have movements such as Republicans for Harris, white men, white women for Harris, Latinos for Harris, etc., etc. You look at the Jewish community, it's what 75 to 80% will vote for Democrats. You look at Jewish members in Congress and the Senate, unless I'm wrong, it's like 95 or 99% of them were Democrats. You look at Asian and Latino communities, like it can absolutely be close of an election, but the simple fact that Kamala Harris and her campaign, the dynamism, the joy movement, if we want to call it that way, but just the hope of change has been able to turn this election. Yum yum.
Now
Hold on,
it
give
is
me a
time
few
to start
minutes.
wrapping it up. There we go. We got the cue.
Baby boss is in the house.
All
No,
right.
let me finish.
Hey, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
So the fact that Kamala Harris was able to turn some states to make them competitive, that's a sign of how close it can be. Yum, yum, va avec maman, je reviens. OK? Je finis dans 2 minutes. OK?
Well,
Donne-moi 2 minutes.
I look at this and
Merci.
say, where is 45 gonna? How is he gonna expand his base?
But the man is not looking at expanding his base. Basically, it's kind of a movement in which whatever happens, you leave something behind.
All right. Well, I think we're going to end it off there. And people, again, if you can, right now, we're going to be coming on September 10th at 9 p.m. But I think we may change that. But right now it's 9 p.m. But wherever you're following me, keep abreast on it. We may update the start time. As always, Cesar, I'd like to say thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today. The boss is in the house. That's where you can get a hold of Cesar, president at rootsandculturecanada.com, email address, Facebook, Cesar Remy Emery. And again, September 10th, he'll be with us. But please reach out to him. Cesar, as always, thank you for everything you do. And we will see you on Tuesday evening. Be well.
Thank you, Dr. Vibe. Thank you, family. Thank you to all the allies out there. Great show as always.
Be well. Thank you. All right, family. That is it. Another epic conversation with Cesar. The boss in the house came in, so he said, it's time to finish. Time to finish. So again, thank you. Someone is saying, enjoy the conversation. Thank you, Sylvia Paris, for liking the conversation. Tell your people, Tuesday night, September 10th, say around 8:45-ish. We'll have the live watch party. Would love contributions from both sides of the border, Canada, the U.S., and from around the world. So, as always, let's close off with this. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Want to grow the subscribers? Tell other people about it. Follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm a part of. Please feel free to email me. dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And as you can see, you can get a hold of me here. Website, the drvibeshow.com. YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show. Instagram, at the drvibeshow.com. X/Twitter, at drvibeshow. And email, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And you can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and on the website, the drvibeshow.com. All right, got some few more comments before we shut down here. Dr. Chachi says, this was great. Well, you helped make it great because you were here live. And Sylvia Paris says, will do. Yes, please share it out. I'm going to do one or two. Well, the post is already up on my Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube channels. So I may have to adjust the start time on that. But I'm also going to do one or two Instagram posts on it just to put it out there. So as always, we finish off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream, you can make it. Sometimes you have to, live your life as a dream. If you can dream, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions and aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourselves grace. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Walk good. And we'll see you on Tuesday.